The dust on Ashmar 7 had a strange quality to it. Red like rust, fine like powder, and it got into everything. Oliver Grant wiped his scanner for the third time that hour and squinted at the readings. Something was wrong with the numbers. Energy signatures don't just appear out of nowhere, especially not in ruins that have been dead for 3,000 years. Dr. Grant, you need to see this. Priya Sharma stood near the temple entrance, her hand pressed against the stone wall. The wall that should have been cold and lifeless was warm under her palm. Oliver crossed the excavation site in quick strides. His boots left prints in the red dust that filled in almost immediately, as if the planet itself wanted to erase any trace of visitors. He had been studying the Draconid civilization for 15 years, ever since he was a graduate student. Back then, everyone told him he was wasting his time on a dead species that left nothing but empty buildings and unanswered questions. He pressed his own hand to the wall beside Priya's. The warmth was unmistakable. More than that, there was a pulse. Faint, slow, but definitely there. Like a heartbeat buried deep inside the stone. The council only gave us 6 weeks before the radiation level spike, Priya said quietly. If we're going to figure out what this is, we need to move fast. Oliver nodded. The dying star nearby was leaking radiation that would make this entire world uninhabitable within 2 months. After that, the Galactic Council would seal Ashmar 7 forever. This was humanity's last chance to understand what happened to the Draconith, the dragon-like beings who once ruled this sector of space and then vanished without warning. The temple rose before them like a mountain carved by careful hands. Massive pillars supported a roof that somehow still stood despite millennia of neglect. The architectural style mixed organic curves with geometric precision, as if the builders couldn't decide whether they were growing a forest or constructing a monument. That was typical of Draconith design. Their technology blended the biological with the mechanical in ways that human scientists still couldn't replicate. The local traders think this place is cursed, Priya mentioned as they set up scanning equipment near the main entrance. They won't come within a kilometer of it. Local traders think everything is cursed if it might interfere with their profit margins, Oliver replied, but there was less certainty in his voice than usual. He had heard the stories. Ships that got too close to the temple reported instrument failures. Survey teams that entered the inner chambers came back shaken, talking about voices and languages they shouldn't understand. Oliver had dismissed it all as superstition until last night. Last night, he had dreamed of wings that blocked out the sun. In his dream, a voice spoke to him in words that meant nothing and everything at once. He had woken up with tears on his face and couldn't remember why he had been crying. The sun was setting now, painting the temple in shades of orange and purple. Twin moons rose on opposite horizons, their pale light mixing with the sunset in ways that Earth's single moon could never match. Oliver made his team set up camp outside the temple proper. Something told him they shouldn't sleep inside those ancient walls. That night, while Priya and the 3 other team members slept in their shelters, Oliver sat by the portable heater and sorted through equipment. His fingers found something that shouldn't have been there. A journal, old and worn, tucked between the scanning packs. His father's journal. Oliver's hand shook as he opened it. Martin Grant had died 20 years ago on an archaeological expedition. The official report said equipment failure in a cave-in. Oliver had been 12 years old. He became an archaeologist because of his father, spent his whole life trying to finish what Martin had started. He flipped through familiar handwriting, past sketches of artifacts and theories about ancient trade routes. The last entry stopped him cold. If you find the Heart Temple, do not enter alone. They are not gone. They are waiting, and they remember everything we did. Oliver read the words 3 times. Heart Temple. He pulled up the survey maps on his tablet and cross-referenced the coordinates from his father's earlier entries. His breath caught in his throat. This temple, the one they were camped beside right now, was the Heart Temple. His father had been here. His father had died here. The journal slipped from Oliver's fingers. He looked up at the temple looming in the moonlight. The warm pulse he had felt in the walls suddenly felt less like a mystery and more like a warning. What had his father discovered? What had killed him? Oliver stood and walked to the temple entrance. The moons provided enough light to see by, and his flashlight cut through the darkness beyond the doorway. He shouldn't go in alone. His father's journal had been clear about that. But he had to know the interior was vast. His footsteps echoed off walls covered in carvings. Dragons in flight, dragons at war, dragons at peace, and humans. Oliver stopped at one carving that showed human figures standing beneath a dragon's wing. The humans looked primitive, wearing simple clothes and carrying basic tools. The dragon above them was enormous, majestic, protective. Why would a Draconith temple show humans? A sound made Oliver spin around. Nothing there, just shadows and ancient stone. He was about to turn back when he saw it. A doorway he hadn't noticed before, now visible in the beam of his flashlight. It led down. Oliver knew he should wait for morning, should bring the team, should follow proper excavation protocols. But his father's journal burned in his mind. They are not gone. They are waiting. He took the first step down into darkness, unaware that below him, in chambers deeper than any human had reached, something ancient stirred in its long sleep. The stairs went down for what felt like forever. Oliver counted 200 steps before he stopped counting. The walls here were different from above, smoother. They almost seemed to glow with a faint blue light that had no visible source. His flashlight became unnecessary after the first few minutes of descent. When the stairs finally ended, Oliver found himself in a chamber that took his breath away. Crystal formations grew from the floor and ceiling like frozen waterfalls. But these weren't natural crystals. They pulsed with light, rhythmic and steady. Data storage, Oliver realized. Living data storage. His communicator crackled. Priya's voice came through, distorted by interference. "Dr. Grant, where are you? Your bio sign disappeared from our scanners." "I'm below the temple," Oliver said. "There's a chamber here. You need to see this." By the time Priya arrived, breathless from running, Oliver had already started examining the crystals. She stood at the chamber entrance, her eyes wide. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The power requirements alone to keep these active for 3,000 years would be astronomical." "They're not just active," Oliver said. He pointed to a central crystal column that was larger than the others. "They're recording, still recording. Whatever happened here, the system never stopped documenting it." Priya pulled out her own scanner and ran it over the nearest crystal formation. The readings made her shake her head in disbelief. These crystals contain more data than our entire planetary archive back on Earth. And this is just one chamber. Oliver approached the central column carefully. Up close, he could see images moving inside the crystal. Scenes playing out like ancient film, but sharper, more real. He reached out and touched the surface. The world exploded into light and sound. Oliver found himself standing on a plane under a purple sky. No, not standing. Watching. He was seeing through someone else's eyes, experiencing their memories. A ship lay broken on the ground ahead, smoke rising from its hull. The design was human, but ancient, primitive even by early spaceflight standards. Figures emerged from the wreckage. Humans in survival suits, moving slowly, injured. They saw him and raised weapons. Not laser weapons or plasma rifles. Ballistic firearms. The kind of technology Earth used 6,000 years ago. The memory shifted. Oliver felt himself moving forward, felt wings he didn't have spread wide. The humans fired their weapons. The bullets bounced off scales. But instead of attacking back, Oliver felt himself do something unexpected. He felt compassion. These creatures were terrified. They were dying. They had crashed on a world that would kill them within days, that he felt himself reach out, gently, carefully. The humans screamed and tried to run, but exhaustion and injuries stopped them. One by one, they collapsed. And one by one, he carried them to safety. The memory faded. Oliver staggered back from the crystal, his heart pounding. What was that? Priya caught his arm to steady him. "You touched the data crystal. It must have direct neural interface capability." "Those were humans," Oliver said. 6,000 years ago. The Draconith saved them. They saved humans. He touched the crystal again, ready this time. More memories flooded through him. He saw the Draconith Emperor, a being of such size and majesty that words felt inadequate. The Emperor personally cared for the human survivors, taught them how to find food, repaired their ship with Draconith technology, sent them home. The Emperor declared humans a protected species, forbade any Draconith from harming them. They remind us of our own ancestors, the Emperor said in a memory. Before we learn to fly, before we reach the stars, they struggle as we once struggled. They are precious. Oliver pulled his hand back, tears streaming down his face. They saved us. The Draconith saved humanity when we were nothing but primitive space travelers. Then what happened to them? Priya asked quietly. Oliver already knew the answer would be terrible. He touched the crystal again and jumped forward in the timeline. 2,000 years after the rescue, humans returned to Draconith space. But this time they came with warships and demands that a human corporation wanted Draconith biotechnology. The Draconith refused to share it. Umanzataka. Oliver watched through Draconith eyes as human weapons destroyed 3 colony worlds. 12,000 Draconith died in the attacks. Civilians, families, children. The Emperor had the power to retaliate. Oliver felt that power coursing through the memory. The Emperor could have wiped humanity from existence. Should have, by any logical measure. Humans had proven themselves violent and ungrateful. But the Emperor remembered those primitive survivors he had saved. Remembered their gratitude before they left. Remembered declaring them protected. The Draconith held a great council. Oliver experienced the debates. Many wanted to destroy humanity before it became more dangerous. Others argued for imprisonment, for containment. The Emperor listened to every voice. Finally, the Emperor made his decision. We will sleep, he said. We will remove ourselves from the galaxy. If humanity can mature, if they can grow beyond their fear and violence, perhaps one day they will seek us out. Not as conquerors, but as students. If even one human comes to our temples seeking understanding rather than weapons, we will know they have the capacity to become what we hoped they could be. The memory shifted again. Oliver saw the Draconith entering stasis pods. Thousands of them, across dozens of worlds. Choosing sleep over war. Choosing hope over revenge. But there was more. Oliver saw a final memory that made his blood run cold. His father, Martin Grant, here in this very chamber 20 years ago. Alone, crying, working desperately on the stasis systems that were failing. Working until his hands bled. Working until his heart gave out. Oliver fell to his knees as the memory ended. His father hadn't died in an accident. His father had died trying to save the Draconith, trying to make up for what humanity had done. Oliver, Priya's voice was urgent. The energy readings are dropping. The stasis systems are failing. We have maybe 3 days before everyone in those pods dies. Oliver looked at her, his face wet with tears. Show me where the pods are. We have to save them. The door to the deeper chamber was covered in warnings. Oliver recognized 16 different languages carved into the stone, including 3 ancient Earth scripts that predated most modern civilization. Every warning said the same thing in different words. Only those who understand the debt may enter. Your father got through this door, Priya said, studying the locking mechanism. There has to be a way. Oliver pulled out his father's journal and flipped through the pages with shaking hands. There, near the end, a sketch of the door with notes scribbled in the margins. Coordinates, pressure points, a sequence. It's not a lock, Oliver said slowly, understanding dawning. It's a test. You have to acknowledge what humanity did. You have to accept the debt. He placed his hands on the marked points and spoke clearly. Humanity was saved by the Draconith. We return that kindness with violence. We owe a debt we can never fully repay. But I am here to try. The door shuddered. Ancient mechanisms groaned to life. The stone slid aside, revealing darkness beyond. The chamber that lay past the door was enormous. The ceiling stretched so high that Oliver's flashlight couldn't reach it. And everywhere, covering the floor in neat rows, were the pods. Hundreds of them. Crystalline coffins holding sleeping forms. The Draconith. Oliver approached the nearest pod carefully. Inside, barely visible through the frosted crystal, was a dragon. Not as large as the Emperor from the memories, but still massive by human standards. Wings folded tight against its body. Scales that might have been blue or green, hard to tell through the stasis field. It looked peaceful, asleep, not dead. The stasis readings are bad, Priya said, moving from pod to pod with her scanner. Power levels are at 15%. Life signs are weak, but stable for now. But Oliver, look at this. She led him to the center of the chamber. There, on a raised platform, sat a pod 3 times larger than any other. The Emperor, even in sleep, even through the crystal, his presence was overwhelming. This was a being who had ruled star systems, who had chosen mercy when vengeance would have been justified. His pod is different, Priya said, her voice hushed. The power readings are strange. It's like he's feeding energy into the other pods, keeping them alive with his own life force. Oliver found his father's body near the Emperor's platform. The preservation field in the chamber had kept Martin Grant's remains from decaying. He looked like he was sleeping, his hand still reaching toward a control panel. Oliver knelt beside his father and gently took the data tablet that lay beside him. The tablet flickered to life. His father's final recording began to play. Oliver, if you're watching this, then you found the heart temple like I knew you would. Martin Grant's voice was weak, exhausted. I've been trying to repair the stasis systems for 3 days. Every time I fix one problem, 2 more appear. The technology is beyond me, beyond any human. But I can't stop trying. These people saved our ancestors. They chose peace when they could have chosen war. They deserve better than to die alone in the dark, because their faith in humanity was misplaced. The recording showed Martin working, his hands trembling with fatigue. The bioreactor is the key. It's alive in a way, grown from Draconith genetic material. It's dying, and without it, all the pods will fail. I've tried everything I know, but human technology can't interface with it properly. I'm sorry, son. I'm sorry I couldn't save them. I'm sorry I won't be there to see you grow up. But I want you to know that trying to save them was the most important thing I ever did. Even if I failed. The recording ended with Martin collapsing beside the control panel. Heart failure, Oliver realized. His father had worked himself to death. Oliver. Priya's voice was tight with fear. The Emperor's pod. Something's happening. The large crystal pod was glowing brighter. Lights flickered across its surface in patterns that almost looked like language. Oliver approached slowly, one hand outstretched as a voice filled the chamber. Deep, resonant, speaking perfect English. We are aware. We have always been aware. Oliver froze. You're awake. I have never slept. Not truly, the Emperor said. I have maintained a stasis field through will alone for 3,000 years. I felt your father arrive. I felt him die, trying to save us. And now I feel you, his son, standing where he fell. The systems are failing, Oliver said urgently. I need to know how to repair them. The bioreactor requires a genetic connection to function, the Emperor explained. Draconith biology. But there's another possibility. Human genetics are uniquely adaptable. A human could serve as a temporary bridge, channeling their own life energy to reboot the system. Priya grabbed Oliver's arm. Absolutely not. We don't know what that would do to you. It would be painful, the Emperor said honestly, and possibly fatal. Your father understood this. That is why he worked on the mechanical systems instead, hoping to find another way. His heart gave out before he could succeed. Oliver thought of his father, working until he died. Thought of the Draconith who saved primitive humans 6,000 years ago. Thought of the Emperor who chose hope over hatred. Tell me what to do, Oliver said. No, Priya insisted. We can call for help. Get experts here. In 3 days, they'll all be dead, Oliver said. There's no time. The Emperor's voice was gentle. The choice is yours, Oliver Grant. I hold no malice if you choose to leave. Your father's attempt was enough to show me that some humans can be trusted. You owe us nothing. Oliver looked at the hundreds of sleeping Draconith, at the Emperor who had stayed awake for 3 millennia to protect them, at his father's body, preserved beside the control panel. Show me how to connect to the bioreactor. The bioreactor sat at the heart of the chamber, a massive organic structure that pulsed with faint light. It looked like a tree made of crystal and living tissue, roots spreading across the floor, branches reaching toward the ceiling. At its center was a space just large enough for a human. "You will need to remove your shirt," the Emperor instructed. "The interface ports will connect directly to your nervous system along your spine." Oliver stripped off his shirt with shaking hands. Priya helped him step into the reactor's embrace. The moment his back touched the organic surface, he felt it respond. Warmth spread across his skin. Not unpleasant at first, almost welcoming. "This is insane," Priya said, checking her scanner. "Oliver, your neural activity is spiking. The reactor is establishing connections faster than I expected. It recognizes his genetic link to Martin Grant," the Emperor explained. "The reactor remembers his father's attempts to help. It trusts the son as it trusted the father." Then the pain started. It felt like fire spreading along every nerve in Oliver's body. He tried to scream, but his jaw locked shut. The reactor wasn't just connecting to his nervous system. It was integrating with it, using his life energy to power itself, drawing on his cellular structure to reboot systems that had been failing for years. Through the pain, Oliver felt something else. Memories, not his own. The reactor was showing him the full history of the Draconith. 6,000 years of civilization flooding through his mind in seconds that he saw the first time the Draconith achieved flight. Felt their joy at discovering they could soar above their world. Experienced their first cautious steps into space. Their wonder at finding other species among the stars. He lived through their golden age. Centuries of peace and discovery. The Draconith were scientists, philosophers, artists. They built wonders that human civilization could only dream of. And they did it all without conquest, without violence. Then came the humans. Primitive, struggling, dying on their broken ship. Oliver felt the Emperor's first reaction. Curiosity mixed with compassion. These creatures were so small, so fragile. But they fought to survive with a determination that was beautiful to witness. The Emperor saved them personally, fed them from his own supplies, taught them which plants they could eat safely, repaired their ship with technology the humans couldn't begin to understand. And when they left, the humans cried with gratitude. They promised to remember, promised to return as friends. 2,000 years later, they returned. But not as friends. Oliver experienced the attack through Draconith eyes. Human warships dropping from orbit, weapons that tore through cities, screams of the dying, the smell of burning scales and shattered crystal. 12,000 Draconith dead in 3 days. The Emperor had called for restraint, had begged his people to remember that these were the descendants of those grateful survivors. The humans were young, frightened, still learning. But the rage of the Draconith was justified. How many more would die if humanity was allowed to continue? The decision to sleep had torn the Draconith civilization apart. Half of them wanted war. Half wanted isolation. The Emperor broke the deadlock with his own choice. "I will stay awake," he declared. "I will maintain the stasis fields with my own life. And if even one human comes seeking forgiveness instead of conquest, I will know our faith was not misplaced." Oliver felt the Emperor's loneliness. 3,000 years of consciousness while everyone else slept. 3,000 years of hope slowly turning to despair. Until Martin Grant arrived. The Emperor had felt Martin's genuine remorse. Felt him working desperately to repair the systems. Felt his heart failing from exhaustion and stress. And in Martin's final moments, the Emperor had touched his mind gently, letting him know that his effort mattered. That one human trying to make amends was worth 3,000 years of waiting. Now, through the bioreactor connection, Oliver felt the Emperor's current state. The ancient being was dying. He had burned away most of his life force, keeping the others alive. He had perhaps days left, maybe hours. No, Oliver gasped through the pain. "You can't die. Not now. Not after everything. The reactor is stabilizing." Priya's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Oliver, it's working. The other pods are showing improved readings. But your vitals are dropping fast. You need to disconnect." "Not yet," Oliver managed to say. The pain was beyond anything he had imagined. His vision was going dark at the edges, but he could feel the reactor healing, drawing on his life to rebuild itself. Just a little longer. Just a few more seconds. Oliver! Priya screamed. Everything went black. Oliver woke to find himself lying on the stone floor, Priya leaning over him with tears streaming down her face. "You idiot," she sobbed. "Your heart stopped. Do you understand? You died." "The reactor," Oliver croaked. "Stable," Priya said. "All the pods are reading healthy. You did it. You saved them." Oliver tried to sit up and failed. His body felt like it had been taken apart and put back together wrong. "The Emperor?" Priya's expression changed. She helped Oliver turn his head so he could see the Emperor's pod. It was dark. No light, no movement, no readings on Priya's scanner. "I am sorry," Priya whispered. "He used the last of his energy to save you. When your heart stopped, his pod opened. He touched you, somehow brought you back. Then he returned to the pod, and his life signs just stopped." Oliver felt tears sliding down his face. The Emperor had waited 3,000 years to know if humanity could change, had sacrificed everything to protect his people, and in the end, had given what remained of his life to save one human who tried to help. The Emperor's pod suddenly flickered with the faintest light. A whisper of a voice, barely audible, filled the chamber. "Thank you, Oliver Grant. You and your father answered my question. Now go. Tell your people what you learned here. Teach them that mercy is strength, not weakness." The light faded. The voice went silent, and Oliver was left to wonder if he had heard it at all, or if it was just the desperate hope of a guilty species wanting to believe they could be forgiven. Oliver spent 3 days recovering in the medical shelter. Priya ran every test she could with their limited equipment. Physically, he should have been dead. His heart had stopped for nearly 2 minutes. The neural stress from the bioreactor connection should have left him brain damaged. Instead, he was healing faster than any human should. "There's Draconith genetic material in your bloodstream," Priya said, staring at her scanner in disbelief. "Not much, but it's there. Integrated into your cells. The Emperor must have done this when he revived you." Oliver could feel the difference. His senses were sharper. Colors seemed brighter. He could hear conversations happening in shelters 50 meters away. And sometimes, when he closed his eyes, he could feel the bioreactor humming in the chamber below. He was connected to it now in ways he didn't fully understand. On the 4th day, he was strong enough to return to the chamber. The sleeping Draconith looked peaceful in their pods. All readings were stable. The bioreactor glowed with healthy light, sustained now by its own power rather than borrowed life force. Oliver had given it enough energy to repair itself, but the Emperor's pod remained dark. Oliver sat beside it for hours, his hand pressed against the crystal surface. "I don't know if you can hear me," he said quietly, "but I need you to know something. My father died believing he failed you. I almost made the same mistake, but we were wrong. We didn't fail. You gave us a chance to prove humanity could be better than its worst impulses. We took that chance. Both of us. That matters." No response came. Oliver hadn't really expected one. Priya found him there as the artificial day cycle in the temple began to fade. "The council is demanding an update," she said. "They want to know what we found." Oliver stood, every muscle protesting. "Then I'll tell them. Everything." The transmission to the Galactic Council took an hour to prepare. Oliver insisted on a full assembly. Every member species needed to hear this. When the connection finally established, Oliver found himself facing representatives from 40 different civilizations. "Esteemed council members," Oliver began, "I am here to report the discovery of approximately 800 living Draconith in stasis on Ashmar 7. I am also here to confess a crime that humanity committed 3,000 years ago." The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. The human representative, Ambassador Liu, looked horrified. "Dr. Grant, what are you talking about?" Oliver told him everything. The rescue 6,000 years ago. The attack 2,000 years later. The Draconith decision to sleep rather than retaliate. His father's death trying to save them. The Emperor's 3,000-year vigil. Every detail, every painful truth. When he finished, the silence was absolute. Finally, the Kelshan representative spoke. The Kelshan were an old species, respected for their wisdom. You are saying the Draconith saved primitive humans, declared them protected, and humanity responded with violence. Yes, Oliver said simply. And the Draconith Emperor chose to sleep rather than destroy humanity. Yes. Why would he make such a choice? Oliver thought of the memories he had experienced through the bioreactor. Because he believed we could change, that we could grow beyond our fear and violence. He waited 3,000 years to see if he was right. Ambassador Liu leaned forward. Dr. Grant, the political implications of this discovery are staggering. Humanity's standing in the galactic community, our trade agreements, our territorial claims, all of it could be impacted if it becomes known that we attacked a species that showed us mercy. I don't care about politics, Oliver said flatly. I care about the truth. And the truth is that we owe the Draconith a debt we can never repay. The least we can do is acknowledge it. The council debated for 6 hours. Oliver waited patiently, refusing to leave his position on the transmission platform. Finally, they reached a decision. The Kelshan representative delivered the verdict. The council has voted to place the Heart Temple under special protection. Dr. Oliver Grant will be appointed as guardian of the Great Sleep, responsible for the care and protection of the Draconith until such time as they wake. The full historical record will be preserved and made available to all galactic citizens. Furthermore, the representative continued, the Draconith biotechnology and data archives will be studied under Dr. Grant's supervision. Any discoveries will be shared gradually with the galactic community, with priority given to medical and humanitarian applications. Ambassador Liu looked like she wanted to argue, but held her tongue. The council had spoken. After the transmission ended, Priya hugged Oliver tightly. You did it. They're protected. For now, Oliver said. But there are human corporations that would kill for access to Draconith technology. Pirates who would steal the stasis pods to sell. We're going to need serious security here. Over the next weeks, the temple complex transformed. The Galactic Council sent construction teams. Medical specialists arrived to study the Draconith physiology. Security forces established a perimeter. Scientists from a dozen species requested permission to study the bioreactor and data crystals. Oliver approved everything that helped protect the sleeping Draconith and denied everything that felt like exploitation. He became known for his fierce protection of the temple. Some called him obsessed. Others called him the conscience humanity needed. 0.5 months after the discovery, Oliver was working late in the data crystal chamber when he felt it. A pulse through his connection to the bioreactor. Different from the usual rhythms. He ran to the stasis chamber. The Emperor's pod was glowing, not bright but no longer dark. The faintest flicker of light danced across its surface. Oliver pressed his hand to the crystal and felt something he thought was gone forever. A heartbeat, slow, weak. But there, you're alive, Oliver whispered. After everything, you survived. The Emperor's voice came through the bioreactor connection, faint as a breath. Your gift of life, energy, changed me, made me partially human, gave me the resilience to endure. I will not wake fully for many years. But I wanted you to know I heard every word you spoke to me, and I am grateful. Oliver felt tears on his face. Rest now. I'll protect them. I promise. I know you will, the Emperor said. That is why I said thank you. 5 years after the discovery, the Heart Temple had become a place of pilgrimage. Scientists came to study. Students came to learn. And people came simply to stand in the presence of the sleeping Draconith and remember that mercy was possible even after betrayal. Oliver stood in the main teaching hall, addressing a class of 30 students from 8 different species. Human students sat beside Kelshan scholars. Priya, now his deputy and partner in managing the temple, helped coordinate the presentations. The Draconith could have destroyed humanity, Oliver said to the class. They had the power. They had the justification. But the Emperor made a different choice. He chose to believe that civilizations could change, could grow beyond their worst moments. The question I want you to consider is this. What does it mean to be worthy of that kind of faith? A young human student raised her hand. Guardian Grant, do you think humanity has changed enough? Will we be worthy when the Draconith wake? Oliver smiled sadly. I don't know, but we have time to try. The Draconith won't fully wake for another 15 years. Their genetic condition still needs treatment, and the Emperor needs time to heal. That gives us 15 years to prove we can be better. After the class ended, Oliver walked through the temple complex. The transformation over 5 years had been remarkable. Where once there was only ancient stone and dust, now there were research facilities, living quarters, and meditation gardens. The Galactic Council had funded most of it, seeing the temple as a symbol of the possibility of redemption. That Oliver's own quarters were simple. A bed, a desk covered in research notes, and a window that looked out over the stasis chamber. He could see the pods from here, glowing softly in the dark. The Emperor's pod pulsed with slightly more light than it had months ago. Healing, slowly but steadily, a message alert chimed on Oliver's terminal. Ambassador Lou requesting a private conversation. Oliver accepted the call. Dr. Grant, Lou said formally. She had never forgiven him for revealing humanity's ancient crime to the galactic community. I'm calling to inform you that there's been increased pressure from certain human corporations to gain access to the Draconith biotechnology. They're lobbying the Earth government directly. The answer is no, Oliver said. As it was the last 50 times they asked. They're offering substantial financial incentives, Lou continued. Money that could fund humanitarian projects across human space. They want to weaponize Draconith technology, Oliver said flatly. The answer is still no. Lou sighed. I expected as much. But I wanted to warn you that they're considering going over your head. Appealing directly to the Galactic Council. After Lou disconnected, Oliver sat in the dark and wondered how many times he would have to have this same conversation. How many ways he would have to say that the Draconith were not a resource to be exploited. That a knock at his door broke his thoughts. Priya entered carrying 2 cups of tea. You're brooding again, she said, handing him a cup. Ambassador Lou says the corporations are getting more aggressive. Let them try, Priya said. The council won't overturn your guardianship. Not after everything you've done here. Oliver took a sip of tea. It was bitter the way he liked it. Sometimes I wonder if my father felt this tired. If he questioned whether trying to save them was worth it. Your father never doubted, Priya said gently. And neither do you. Not really. She was right. For all his exhaustion, Oliver had never once regretted his choice to connect with the bioreactor, to risk his life for the Draconith. It was the most important thing he had ever done. Late that night, Oliver walked down to the stasis chamber alone. He did this often, checking on the sleeping Draconith, making sure all systems were functioning properly. But tonight felt different. The air hummed with energy he couldn't quite identify. The Emperor's pod was glowing brighter than he had ever seen it. Oliver approached slowly, his heart pounding. Is something wrong? The Emperor's voice came through their connection, stronger than it had been in months. Nothing is wrong. I am simply ready to speak with you more directly. The crystal surface of the pod began to shift, not opening completely, but becoming translucent. For the first time, Oliver could see the Emperor clearly, even diminished by years of sacrifice, even reduced to a fraction of his former power. He was magnificent. Scales that shimmered between gold and silver. Wings that filled the entire pod, even folded tight. Eyes that held the wisdom of 6,000 years. Those eyes opened and looked directly at Oliver. You have protected my people for 5 years, the Emperor said. You have refused wealth and power to maintain your promise. You teach others about our history with honesty, hiding neither our kindness nor humanity's cruelty. Why? Oliver thought carefully before answering. Because my father taught me that the measure of a person isn't their worst mistake. It's what they do after. Humanity made a terrible mistake 3,000 years ago. I can't undo that, but I can make sure we don't make the same mistake again. The Emperor's expression was impossible to read, but Oliver felt warmth through their connection. Your father believed one person could represent the possibility of an entire species. I see now that he was correct. You carry the debt of your ancestors, but you also carry their capacity for growth. Will you forgive us? Oliver asked quietly. When you wake fully, when your people wake, will you be able to forgive what humanity did? Forgiveness is not mine alone to grant, the Emperor said. 800 Draconiths sleep in this chamber. Each must make their own choice, but I will tell them what I have seen. A human who died trying to save us. His son who risked everything to finish what his father started. And 5 years of faithful guardianship. That will matter. Oliver felt tears sliding down his face. Thank you for giving us another chance. Thank you for proving we were right to offer it, the Emperor replied. The crystal began to cloud again, becoming opaque. The Emperor was returning to deeper sleep. But before the connection faded completely, Oliver heard one final message. 15 years, Oliver Grant. When we wake, I hope to meet you face to face. Not as guardian and ward, but as friends. The first true friendship between our species in 3,000 years. The pod settled back into its rhythmic glow. Oliver stood there for a long time, his hand pressed against the crystal. Eventually, he returned to his quarters and began writing. Students would arrive in the morning, and he had lessons to prepare. Stories to tell about the Draconith, about mercy and sacrifice and hope. About an emperor who waited 3,000 years to say thank you. Oliver looked out his window at the sleeping Draconith and made a silent promise. When they woke, humanity would be ready. Not perfect, but better. Growing, learning, trying. That was all the Emperor had ever asked for. That was all Oliver's father had died, trying to prove was possible. And Oliver would spend the next 15 years making sure that their faith was justified. The temple was no longer empty. It was filled with students and scientists and dreamers. It was filled with the quiet breathing of 800 sleeping dragons. It was filled with hope that even the deepest wounds between civilizations could heal. And most importantly, it was filled with the knowledge that one person making one right choice could change everything.